Good morning, everyone. We will call our work session of the Scott County Fiscal Court to order, and I would like to ask you all to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Let's pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First order of business is we have some special guests here this morning with us. Miss Nancy Varney, Derek, and Mike, and Carla, and welcome. And we wanted to really take a minute to celebrate Coach Varney, Mayor Varney, Mutt Varney. And last Friday and Saturday, there was truly a celebration of his life, special time, and I think it's very, very appropriate, fitting. And I'm going to ask Cam to read the proclamation, and just thank you all for coming. And we wanted to really take a moment to celebrate what he did for our community, not only as a teacher, coach, principal, mayor, but just as a fantastic human being. And father, husband, grandfather, I think they called him Poppy, and just intentionally do that. We need to just recognize what he did for our community. So, Cam, if you'd read that.
Yes, sir. Proclamation, Scott County, Kentucky, honoring Everett Mutt Varney for a dedicated lifetime of service to Scott County and the city of Georgetown. Whereas Everett Varney passed away on February 20th, 2025, after a lifetime of service in which he positively impacted many lives in his community. And whereas Everett Varney served 2 consecutive terms as mayor of the city of Georgetown from 1999 to 2006, and then served an additional term as mayor from 2011 to 2014. And during his time as mayor, Everett Varney oversaw a rapid period of growth of the city, including business park developments and the construction of a new police department building. And whereas Everett Varney was a basketball and baseball star at Belfry High School and graduated from Berea College as the all-time leading scorer for the school's basketball team, while also playing baseball for 4 years. After his playing career, Mr. Varney coached high school basketball in Virginia, earned his master's degree at the University of Virginia, and was an assistant coach at Morehead State University. And whereas Everett Varney began working as a teacher at Scott County High School in 1972, and during a long career with Scott County Schools served as assistant principal of Scott County High School before serving as principal of Scott County 9th grade school. And whereas Everett Varney coached the Scott County High School Cardinals basketball team for 17 years, winning 12 district championships, 2 regional championships, and advancing to the Sweet 16 in 1983 and 1984. And whereas Everett Varney is a member of the Kentucky Association of Basketball Coaches Court of Honor, Belfry School Hall of Fame, and the Berea College Hall of Fame. And whereas Everett Varney was a member of the Holy Trinity Episcopal Church in Georgetown, where he and his wife Nancy made their home and raised a family for more than 50 years. And whereas Everett Varney will be lovingly remembered by his wife of 62 years, Nancy Varney, and his children and his grandchildren, and a community of citizens whose lives he touched. Now therefore let it be known that the Scott County Fiscal Court and Judge Executive Joe Pat Covington hereby honor and praise Everett Varney for his lifetime of distinguished and dedicated service to Scott County, dated the 7th day of March, 2025.
Now, thank you all so much, and it really was a celebration of his life and what he has done, and we wanted to take a moment. Any magistrate like to make any comment this morning? Coach Varney, I didn't know Coach Varney from Adam in 1983. Tried out for the basketball team, promptly got cut, but it was a good decision. But Coach Varney and Billy Ray Reynolds gave me a great opportunity. And when you look back on your life, when you have opportunities and people in your life that make a difference, that was a huge difference for me. But Coach Varney did that for so many people. And I'm truly indebted. So Whew. I'd like to give this to you all, and let's give them a hand. And Coach Warren. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Nancy.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thanks.
Our next piece of business, we have Logan Hart from the Bluegrass Area Development District with us, and he is going to give us a short presentation on Safe Streets and Roads for All, SS4A, if you want to put that in your other list of acronyms. Logan, I requested Logan to come and share this information. Logan's always good about getting to the point, and appreciate you being here, Logan.
Yeah, thanks, Judge. Thanks for having us. So I'll just go through quickly the purpose of this award and this grant that we were awarded from the Department of Transportation that we at the AD are working with the state Kentucky Transportation Center with the University of Kentucky on. And what we're trying to do right now is we're trying to get MOAs signed with all of our communities so that we can work together to improve this safety action plan that we're required to complete as part of this program. And that MOA would allow us to reimburse you all for any assistance you provide. So I'd like to go through just a few of the steps, the tasks that are associated with this program and this grant. So first thing, what did this grant get awarded for? What was the purpose of it? So the purpose of it was to develop a regional safety action plan for the entire AD district. This document, it looks at crashes and crash history and different hazards on roadways throughout the counties, throughout the cities. It looks at identifying low-cost safety treatments and ways to improve those areas, and it focuses on prioritizing improvements based on the past history of those problem areas. So we were awarded a federal grant of roughly $425,000 from the federal government for this project. Now, the project has a total cost of around $530,000, and it did require a match of around $106,000, but the state has decided to contribute those funds through the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet. So all of the funding for this program is coming from the federal and the state governments. All right, so next slide. All right, so the project task. There's 5 primary project tasks associated with this project. The first one is a regional crash analysis and identification of focus roadways for your county. There's the identification of projects for your county. There's a Vision Zero statement, which is a resolution that's required for this grant. There's a public engagement component, and then there is the final development of the safety action plan. All right, so the regional crash analysis. This is a step that's going to be completed primarily by the Kentucky Transportation Center at the University of Kentucky. So using data that the State Transportation Cabinet has, the Transportation Center is going to compile a list of roadways that are, the way it was described to me, they're going to look at which roads contribute up to 90% of the crashes in each county. So they're going to provide those roadways in a list, and it is going to be our responsibility to look at those roadways and determine if those truly are the roadways that are the most problematic in your county. And this is where local participation is really important. So this grant, the work for this grant is going to be done regardless of whether we have local participation or not. The difference is going to be whether we have input from the county. So if we don't have anyone from the county working with us on this grant, we have to take the data that is presented to us from the Transportation Center and run with it. Now, the reason why county participation is so important is, a lot of these roadways where there's there's crashes. A lot of these crashes aren't reported. If you have minor fender benders or individuals don't report it to the police, we may not know that. The state may not know that. But individuals out in the county, they may know that. So they can see a road and say, no, that's not really a problem. But this one over here, even though the data that is held by the state may look otherwise, they may say, no, that's more of an issue. So we want to take care of whatever the most problematic spots are for the county. So the identification of the strategic safety projects. The Kentucky Transportation Center, after we give them a final list of problem roadways, they're going to conduct a training course at the Bluegrass Ad for individuals who are going to be going out into the communities, and they're going to be driving the roadways, and they're going to be using iPads that we purchased as part of this grant to record data on these roadways. So the Transportation Center will hold the trainings at the ad, and either us as the ad staff or individuals designated by the counties will attend this training and be prepared to go out and drive the counties. So if you agree...
We need two.
Two
individuals.
Yes. So if the county allows for individuals to work with us on this project, those individuals will go to this training, they'll learn how to use all of the technology on the iPad, and they'll be given instructions for driving these roadways. The next step is a Vision Zero statement, and this is pretty simple. The State Transportation Center drafts a resolution for each of the counties to approve, and then we tailor that resolution individually per county, depending on what your specific needs are. We present that to the fiscal court, and the fiscal court will approve it. We'll include it in the safety plan. This is essentially just a document that says we as a county commit to having 0 fatalities in the future. Pretty simple part. All right. Once the data is collected from the counties or the ad, we have a public engagement responsibility. The State Transportation Center, they create a couple surveys, and it becomes our responsibility and the county's responsibility to disseminate those surveys amongst the city and county websites, Facebook page. If you have any community groups that have an extensive reach out in the county, we submit those surveys, and the ad will collect the feedback that's received on those surveys. That is incorporated into the final plan that's drafted by the State Transportation Center. All right, and lastly, so the State Transportation Center will draft a safety action plan based on the data that we receive from the individuals that go out and drive the roads, from feedback from members of the public. They will draft that plan. They will submit it to us. We will work with the county to provide that to you all to get your all's feedback and any final input on the plan before the final plan is approved. Once the final plan is drafted, and this is a region-wide plan with county-specific components. Once the entire plan is completed, we will, as an area development district, approve this plan. And once it is approved, we can then use this plan to reference for future transportation projects in the state of Kentucky or in our district. So why is it beneficial for the individual counties to participate with us? So like we said, this plan is going to be completed regardless. We have the funding, we have the staff to do it on our own. However, we really feel that it's important to get participation from our communities, so that the data that is collected is of a higher quality. You all know your roads. The people in Scott County know the roads. They know the problem areas. We don't. We just rely on numbers. The numbers aren't always telling the full story. And also, like I said, the funding is completely taken care of by the federal and the state government. We don't need any contribution from the fiscal court to fund this project. If the county participates, there is a reimbursement that will be provided to the county of $13,500 to cover any staff time needed to go out and collect the data on the roadways, to attend the trainings, to pass the resolutions, things of that nature. So $13,500 is available for you all if you pass this MOA.
Logan, you explained that perfectly, and as I predicted and made it pretty clear, it sounds like something that we ought to investigate moving forward with. Questions or comments for Logan?
My only question is, there's the $13,500 available back in Scott County. Is that based
it comes back to you in that full amount. The state had a formula that they used based on the different tasks with how they calculated the cost, so that was incorporated into the initial budget. So it, regardless of whether you spend, I mean, this isn't realistic, but if you spent 1 hour, one staff person spent 1 hour, you were still going to receive the 13.5.
Logan,
Jim Hardsworth.
I'm sorry.
Chad, go ahead.
To apply these safety issues, I guess it can be applied to looking at city, county, state, I guess even private streets. We
Yes.
have a few of those. Any of that can be addressed when we're looking at the safety plan. Is that correct?
Countywide, yes.
Okay.
City streets and the primary focus, is going to be on important state highways, local roads, the whole
So it's
shebang.
not just state roads that the
Correct.
state's given
And
funding.
local
It could
roads.
be, okay.
That's one of the benefits of this specific program is it's also focused on your local roads. It's not just focused on your state highways.
We, like you said, we had to sign this mission or Vision Zero statement.
Yes.
So let's say it identifies a big project somewhere. Are we tied that we have to then do that, or are there just recommendations that we should look at in the future? Like
So
that.
it's just a resolution. So it's just the county saying we commit to this. It's not tying you to a specific project. It's just a way for you to commit to that's our goal for the future. But you're not tied to any specific project with this.
We're just committing to safe roads, not
Yes.
committing to.
It's a vision for the
project.
future.
And by collecting data, looking at it holistically, trying, and then making key, supporting key improvements, that's the big picture of it.
Yeah, I mean the main reason why these plans are so important is that in the future, if you come across a project that you really want to support, you can tie your application for that funding back to this plan, and you can make the argument, look, we identified this as a major problem area. Here's the data that proves that this is a major problem area, and use that to justify your request for additional funding or help from other agencies to do that. If you don't have the action plan, or if you have an action plan and the data is not good, it's harder for you to make that justification to that funding agency for that project.
Logan, what about safe routes for schools? Could that be included? I read something on that document, but I don't know.
Not sure on that one. Yeah, I'll have to check in on that.
Thanks.
And that's tied to Dwayne and I've wanted a sidewalk out to the old Scott County
Yeah.
High School for the last many years, and it still would be a very very beneficial thing
Yeah.
to do as well.
I believe this program, where the Safe Streets Schools, that program is more focused on alternative
Yeah.
sources of transportation. This one is
like
primarily
the-
focused on
on the
improving
road.
the roads, I believe. I can check.
And that
I'll
is
check
like-
to make sure there's a different tie, but that's my understanding.
Sidewalks and walking and biking and such.
Yep.
But, of course, we can bring this back next Friday for your all's consideration, resolution. I think that's what we ought to do. But in the meantime, I'll talk to JR and maybe, since we're collecting crash data, maybe talk with the sheriff. Maybe we could have one staff member from each agency. And then it would make sense to me if there's safety items that each one of those agencies might use to split the 13.5 on and be able to expend that money towards road safety, traffic safety stuff. Yes, I see you raise your hand. Anytime it's grant.
All of our crashes and collisions along with some other data, and I can
Sounds-
share that with you.
Sounds like he's a
That's not
volunteer.
just-
Are you volunteering? Is there a motion?
13,500 an hour.
That won't be just reports, which was what I'm sure you would be relying on, because that's just what is given to the state. This is just anything we respond to if they don't request a report. So
Can you make a heat map out of that?
I have a map out of it. I'll share it to you.
Yeah. All right, but we'll talk and we'll talk this week and then bring this back to you all on Friday.
Perfect. And if you all have any questions, Judge has my email, my phone number. Y'all can give
You
me
don't
a
have a
call.
model or
anytime.
draft resolution or a MOA or something that you would want us to consider?
We have an MOA document. Did David send that to you?
I think
wanna send
it's in that.
Okay.
It's in there.
Yeah, I think we have that.
Send that, we can.
And I'll
Okay.
share it with Cam so he
Perfect.
Do that.
can navigate that.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
All right. Next, Chase, welcome. Glad you're here. Chase Azevedo with GMWSS, all things water and sewer. Thank you for taking the time to come and give us an update on various projects that impact all of our community.
Well said. Thank you for letting me join you all today. I think this is always a good opportunity that we can share some information about ongoing projects that not only affect our customers in our city, but also to the far extent reaches of the county. And just so you all are aware, the judge maintains an excellent line of communication with Georgetown Municipal through our chairman of our board, Les Jarvis, and me as general manager. And we get your all's questions passed on and hear your concerns, and we try to always make sure we get the judge the information he needs. But that doesn't change the fact that this is a great opportunity in this a work session setting to just give you some project updates where things stand. There's a lot of partnership between the utility and the city and the fiscal court, so this kind of thing is good. And Judge and I, we did kick around an agenda, and so I've got a few things. First, we'll talk about South Sewer Extension, current status. Then we go into the South Side water tank and distribution system improvements. Give you an update on our northern Scott County sewer improvements. That's mainly going to be related to funding, our grant that we've received. And then we'll touch on just briefly kind of the status of water and sewer connections on both of our projects back here at the Pavilion and the Hall of Justice. So you give me an opportunity, Judge, to talk water and sewer, you know I'm going to take it. So
Appreciate
whether
it.
you all want to hear it or not, but some people do, some don't care a bit. They just want to know that when the faucet turns on, the water's going to be there. So first thing, South Sewer Extension. This is easily one of our most high-profile projects that we've had in our utilities history. The list of stakeholders, it is the largest group of stakeholders on any single project that I've ever worked on. That's the city, the fiscal court, the utility, Division of Water, WEDCO, Kentucky Infrastructure Authority, and then the interesting part is through this project, we've had multiple owners of one mobile home park that this project is impacted. And the list goes on from there. So original goals of the two major original goals of the project was to eliminate the two privately owned failing package wastewater treatment plants that served the Georgetown mobile estate communities, also referred to as Spindletop and Ponderosa. Currently now it's Sawyer Point. So I kind of throw those names around interchangeably. But we wanted to eliminate those package treatment plants, lots of violations, lots of bypasses. They weren't working, outdated infrastructure. And so very happy to report as of January of last year, those were taken out of service. And that flow from that community, that service area that was connected to the Georgetown Municipal Collection and Conveyance System and sent for treatment at Wastewater Plant 1 back here in our downtown, our primary plant next to UCON.
What was the total investment in that? Do you know?
That's still ongoing, but roughly $23 million forever. That's engineering,
Right.
property, construction. But we could do a whole work session on the breakdown of that, on who's paid for what on that.
Right.
That's not $23 million directly to customers, anything like that.
Right.
It's a lot of funding, and with the private mobile home park, that community paying a large chunk of that infrastructure. So
Does it also include the part that's in Fayette County, like the whole thing?
yes,
Even the
it
Fayette
does.
County? Okay.
You can
Always
see that
wondered
on the map. The black line right here. That's the county line. So this part of the park actually is Fayette County.
And they were a participant as well, correct?
LFUCG put up funding. So, and actually, part of the reason in putting up that funding, there is another park that's further south into Fayette County, and we did reserve capacity in this infrastructure. If anybody ever wants to take action on that and bring the flow to this line, we have the capacity to accept it. But
And that's the one that's kind of in that straight stretch that's
Maple
on the left-hand
and Maple
side.
Grove.
the
I
Red State
believe.
Barbecue.
That's right.
So if anybody ever wants to get energized about that one, we've got capacity for it, but they've got to bring the water to us. So,
I got one other question on this. So that property, the line that was run, if anybody ever decided to develop it into something different, like instead of mobile homes, does it have enough capacity if they build affordable housing or anything like that out there that?
are we talking about on that one specific property? Or just in general?
Just the trailer parks out there in general. If somebody came in and said, or
What we did was, in sizing the infrastructure, was we looked at the existing, this goes in, I was going to touch on this a little bit later, but let's get it. When we sized this, it was very important. This project, I don't think, would have ever moved forward if we had sized this for ultimate build-out of the corridor. That's development into the Greenbelt, and I don't think we would ever had any support for it. So what we did south of the Greenbelt in Scott County, and then we can talk a little bit about Fayette County as well, but we sized that for existing structures that if they wanted to tie on, there would be capacity. So it was kind of a house count, a building count. At the time, if we knew of projects that were going to move forward, we factored that in, specifically Grace Christian Church doing an expansion. We factored flow in for that. That's why they're able to do that and connect to the sewer. And then we factored in flow for ultimate build out of Sawyer Point, which currently, and I don't know where the numbers are now. At the time we started the project, I think it was platted out to 500 some units, but they only had 300, I believe 376 at the time we started. With this connection, they can, I think there was maybe a moratorium from the health department that was put on that they couldn't expand any further. Once we got sewer infrastructure, they were not sending flow to those package plants. They can go out to their platted limit. Now, if somebody wants to change those, we'll just have to look at what's the flow of the new project. Is it going to exceed what we factored in when we sized the infrastructure? And I think that'll be on a case-by-case basis.
Gotcha.
But ultimately, the line size was determined by Division of Water. I think they had to, part of the agreement was that they had to size the line because it was actually smaller prior to that. But we did. Part of that is you could extend service to all those existing customers. Mm-hmm. But we tried to refrain the line from taking on new developments because
Correct.
of it being in the Greenbelt, as well as trying just to service the ones we had too. But also on that, Chase, that money that is borrowed by the KIA and the KIA loan, you all redid lots of things within the system.
Correct.
To taking pump stations offline, and so there's more to it than just this area too.
Correct. Once you get up into the city limits, with this being a loan with 0.5% interest, we tried to take advantage of that and factor in some infrastructure upgrades that were necessary with a very low interest loan, and that's the part that Georgetown Municipal is funding because that benefits existing customers. So we had, as Magistrate Wallace said, we have ability now to eliminate, I believe, 7 pump stations with 1 regional station, and we're doing that piece by piece moving into the future. So that was really the draw for the utility to be involved and do that with low interest loan money. So lots of aging infrastructure in that area, even though the south side of the city, it's kind of, you'd think it's new, but some of those pump stations are 20 plus years old and need to upgrade. This was a way we could do that and distribute that cost, very low interest over a 30-year loan. So we did factor in a lot of infrastructure upgrades. This was, I think, originally thought of a $7 million project.
Yeah, that's right.
Chase, if the city of Lexington wanted to consider connecting that other park that's on US 25, right now what's in the hopper, in the queue, is improvements on US 25 in that corridor and widening that road. It sure would make sense if they were going to do it before they widen the road, and because the right-of-way would go right down beside the road, correct? If you were going to tie
Correct.
that in. Does that make sense to you all?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I might mention that to our colleagues to the south and
Sure.
Just see if,
We've
just run
had-
that back up the flagpole, because I know it's an issue as we speak.
We've had one call about that from a developer that I guess was looking at purchasing that community and said, I heard we can send our sewer, and I said, you can, but you got to get it here. And
Yeah.
that's the only property in Fayette County outside of Sawyer Point, what you see on the screen.
And that's the only one that was
ones that are
identified.
Identified and that we designed capacity for.
Yeah.
I'm glad you started out with this, because when you just brought up a $7 million project that ended up being $23 million with a whole bunch of other stuff in there, there's so many times we just hear $7 million went to $23 million, and that's what gets reported. And I never knew about all the other upgrades. I was just looking at it going, how in the world did we go from $7 million to $23 million?
Well,
So
Right.
that is,
And-
that's
and-
why I think it's really good for you to come and explain it publicly, because I don't know those things, because I'm not at all the meetings, I'm not on the board or anything like that. So I just hear 7 million, 23 million, and I'm like, what in the
What in
world
the
has
world?
happened?
No, that was part of working with KIA and saying, hey, what all are we allowed to factor in? And we tried to do more, but they said no. I mean, they did draw a line, and that's kind of where we settled. But we did a lot of outreach, and that was more to the city council related to, we looked at the $7 million project that was putting a pump station at the community and pumping it back into town. Well, we got to looking at it, well, where can we receive it? It's going to be one of these pump stations that's already in need of upgrade or doesn't have the capacity in there. So we looked at just that $7 million option. It really wasn't a good option. Then we looked at, a larger regional station, but where's it going to be located? And maybe we can just eliminate a few pump stations. And we went to kind of that $23 million option. And yes, it was expensive, but we have the potential now to take 7 pump stations offline.
Mm-hmm.
And we're doing those kind of one by one on individual projects. So jumping back in, secondary goal through completing the primary goal of getting those package plants decommissioned, we do protect our water supply. That's a major tributary of Cane Run Creek. The edge, the boundary of where our aquifer is mapped that we get our drinking water out of, right next to this. So I think we can make a case and be reasonably assured that this is not this water now. When it's bypassed from these failing package treatment plants, it's not going into the aquifer either. So we checked both those boxes. As I said, January of '24, that is when we took those plants offline, and by spring, completely taken out, restoration done on the lagoons. You drive out there, you'll never know that they were there. So we checked those boxes, very pleased. But if we go to the next slide, what do we have remaining? And Magistrate Wallace can attest that we talk regularly about the state of Lau Road. And I share his frustration on how long that stretched out. There were some complications there, but we made every attempt to get that restoration done on Lau Road last year. There were some unanticipated, let's just say, differences of opinion between our contractor and KYTC on how that would be done. And it took through this winter to finally get those resolved. But I'm happy to report as of February, we finally got everybody together in a conference setting. We got all the differences worked out related to who's doing the work, what is the scope of work, how they're going to go about doing the restoration on Lau Road. And they have that scheduled, the paving sub has that scheduled, top of their queue for as soon as the asphalt plant's open. They will start doing the prep work, the milling, I believe end of this month, weather permitting, and then as soon as the asphalt's ready, which is anticipated next month. I've also heard that might be earlier or at the end of this month. I don't have any control over that, but we'll get started on that as soon as we can and get that knocked out. I know that's been a thorn in our side, mine too.
Hallelujah.
But we'll get it done. Other items that we need to wrap up on the project before we call this one done, we do have some revisions to our user agreement between the city, the utility, and the ownership of the mobile home park. We've got to get those updates completed, so that needs to go back to our board and city council. And then the last thing is the service area ordinance on who's allowed to, putting that into a city ordinance, who is allowed to connect to this based on how we size the infrastructure, who's in the service area. We want to make that bulletproof, put it in an ordinance so there's no questions. There's no, we want to tie to it, but you might be taking somebody's capacity that was already kind of promised there. So we're going to do that. That's underway between our attorney and the city attorney, trying to finalize that and get it in front of council for a first reading.
I do have one question.
Yep.
I have not had anybody approach me about this. I do believe Bluegrass Baptist Church is relocating. They were originally a customer, and I would assume that they are hooked on the sewer.
They're not.
They're not. Okay. So I assume when they move down New Coleman Lane, that they are going to just be on septic there
Correct.
as well. Okay.
There is capacity for the west side of properties on the west side of 25. We did leave a stub out on the east side.
Oh, yeah.
But if those properties wanted to connect to sewer, what it would take is all of those property owners coming together and helping to fund getting a collector sewer on that side of the road and getting it under the road. But there is capacity in the line if they want to do that. That's defined in the service area, and that'll go into the service area ordinance.
Okay.
What about the water quality in Cane Run? Has it improved since you took that offline?
I haven't heard of any odor complaints, which we had previously. We would hear about it because people would assume it was our infrastructure. There is a civic organization, I think it's Friends of Cane Run, that do water quality testing, and I don't have that data, but from what I have heard and talking with the representative there on that organization, they said it has improved.
Good.
We can go to the next slide. We'll switch gears from wastewater, talk about drinking water. And this is our South Side Tank and Distribution System Improvements Project. And this is another major piece of our capital improvements program. And just some background, what we're trying to do is we're trying to increase our stored water volume within our distribution system. I've explained this in presentations before, but probably not in this setting. There are regulations from Division of Water that you have to keep so much stored water in your system, and what that regulation is, you have to have at least 1 day, average day demand, stored water in your system. We can store up to 2.5 million gallons a day in our system across our storage tanks. Our average day demand is just over 4 million gallons. So how do we get away with that? We've got emergency connections with Frankfurt Plant Board and Kentucky American. So that is how we kind of get by on that regulation. Doesn't mean we don't need to fix it. We need more water storage for customer demand and potentially fire demand. So that's what this project was about. It was identified. We felt strongly enough that this needed to be part of our capital program. We want to increase the level of service all across the southern part of the county, and we want to do this in a manner, and what I put on here is scalable infrastructure. We want to be able to do this project in a manner that this infrastructure can be expanded upon, and we can grow this infrastructure as customer growth and customer demand increases. So that's kind of our goals with this project. If we go to the next slide. So funding, this is anticipated to be about a $12.5 million project with $7.4 million coming from our rate revenue, and then Senator Thayer worked with us and worked with the fiscal court, and he secured this $5 million line item grant in the state legislature. This is going on a few years ago now. So that's kind of the funding. That's where we're at currently, and that's what we will stick to. That's what's in our rate structure, but that's the funding part. If we can go to the next slide, we'll talk about.
So Chase, in these are, I assume, capital projects, and within your budget. So because of this project, it's going to take away from other capital projects such as line improvements and things like that, or is this based on new revenue that is going to be obtained by customers it's like for new funding that you'll be using, and you're budgeting the existing continuous revenue on, you know what I'm saying? You got a capital project plan here, and this is a new capital project. Is it going to be separate, or is it going to take away from your existing capital project?
We have a long list of capital needs.
Yeah, I think you got
and staying
a bunch
ahead
of items on it.
Staying ahead of infrastructure renewal is one of the biggest challenges in the utility industry. Similar to staying ahead on roadway, bridge infrastructure, staying ahead of that funding curve for renewal. And this project, we didn't put this in and specifically take something else out. We just put priority, and that's why we asked the judge to help work with us on obtaining some funding. That's how strongly we felt about it. I don't like getting by a regulatory reg for water storage because we have connections. It helps us, but we still need to work on fixing the problem.
Okay, so it's a priority.
It's a priority.
Would you say that, regardless of the funding, this was a priority?
This was a priority,
This was
either
a
way.
priority. The reality of being awarded the funding just allowed us to move forward.
Correct.
With getting it moved up the list, so to
Correct.
speak.
So, and then we've had that funding, I think at least the state funding in for almost a couple of years now. I'm sure you're going to update us on where we're at.
Yeah, let me get there.
Yeah, okay.
Let me get there. That'll be on the next one, but just kind of what is our scope of work for this project? Well, we want a new water storage tank or tanks possibly, and that'll be in the Paynes Depot Road corridor, somewhere in there. And we'll implement that infrastructure with a booster pump station that adds energy to the system. That's what will help us increase pressure level of service across the southern part of the county. We did a customer count of what we think customers with this project will be positively impacted. We had that just over 1,400 customers. So we're getting a pretty good bang for our buck with this project as far as how many customers are going to see a positive impact. With the project, the tank, the booster pump station, we'll also be looking at upgrades to existing water lines and new water lines. The corridor for that will be Paynes Depot and then Ironworks Road on both the east and west side of Paynes Depot, and then up into Eder Lane, and then some improvements even up on the bypass. All of those tie in together for that part of the system, and that's kind of where our scope is. So we'll go to the next slide and we'll go right into what you asked about. What's our current status? So we've retained a design engineer, and they're in the pre-design and kind of planning alternatives analysis stage where we're evaluating different solutions for the problems, figuring out what's optimal. So with that, we look at tank size, tank type, that's whether it's ground storage or elevated storage. We look at tank locations, and we're looking at line sizes. You can't oversize drinking water infrastructure. It's a challenge in the design. You have to find the optimal sizing, because if you oversize it and you don't have the demand pulling that water out, the water is going to go bad in the system, and we've got to dump it on the ground. So that's kind of where we are with this specific project. And yes, that's been slow with that funding being awarded. However, here's why. Concurrent with this project, we've got two other major efforts, and they all three tie together, and they've all three got to be done together. We can't move forward on this one until the other two are done. So those other two efforts, we have a system-wide hydraulic model. That's a computer engineering tool where we build our system in a CAD space, and then we have that, and we can run scenarios to see if we add a tank at this location of this size, how's it going to impact the overall system. So that's ongoing, and that is almost complete. That may be complete. We're just waiting on the final calibration report. It's where they test it, make sure it's accurate, and we're ready to go and start using it. Again, that's a system-wide effort. That will be for every water line that we own in the county. So that's north, south, east, west. That's not just for this project.
Do y'all have a location for it yet?
I'm sorry?
Do y'all have a location yet, or you're still,
We've got multiple sites that we've got our eye on.
okay, but y'all don't have any land for it yet? In that corridor?
We've talked to property owners. We haven't acquired anything yet. So, other part of that is we've been studying long-term water supply for a number of years now, and we're currently we treat water at our water treatment plant at Royal Spring downtown here. Additionally, as I said, we purchase water from Frankfort Plant Board, sourced from the Kentucky River. In emergencies, we also purchase from Kentucky American, sourced from the Kentucky River. So in order to be prepared for demand and expansion of our system, our customers, we've analyzed purchasing additional water from potential water supply kind of wholesale partners in a manner that not only are we good for the next 10 years, which is our current purchase agreement with Frankfurt Plant Board, we're not just looking there, we're looking the next 50 years out. We're looking 75 years out. We don't want drinking water, clean water, to ever be an issue in Scott County. Not going to let that happen. So we've been doing a lot of work on that. I've presented some of that information to the board, but we are ready to, you're going to be hearing about that. I guess it's just a preview in the next few months. You're going to be hearing a lot about it. I'm sure I'll be back in the news when we start discussing that, because it's as important as our wastewater plant project has been, our drinking water, making sure we have a reliable quality supply for the future. That's top priority. Everything else is secondary to that.
But the judge knows this, but maybe the court members don't. But we have a serious PSI issue in the southern part of Scott County. And there's people who have built houses, brand new houses, and you go up on the second floor, and because it's above the water tanks,
Yep.
PSI is less. And so you're taking a shower upstairs is going to be different than one you take downstairs. And so hopefully this is going to address these issues, as well as some of the fire protection and along Iron Works. But
This
the
will
main thing,
definitely improve that level of service, and I think, as we said, those 1,400 customers, I think we'll all see positive. And when I'm saying positive impact, better pressure. That's what I'm
We've
talking
solved
about.
the issues down here.
oh yeah,
Take a shower downstairs.
I like it. So what I'm getting at here, I'm telling you about a lot of different moving parts. Mentioned hydraulic model, long-term water supply, because all three efforts, as I said, they have to all be done at the same time. And if we don't do the hydraulic model right, or if we don't do our long-term water supply right, this south side tank at $12.4 million, it's not going to be right. It's not going to work correctly. So all three are important, and we're working on all of those. That's the reason this has gone slower than maybe what it's anticipated. Mm-hmm. It's not that work is not being done. It's not that just critical work is not being completed. It's just a lot of moving parts, and they all have to be done and come together at the same time. So water supply, like I said, I think you'll be hearing about that in the next month, 2 months, where we're going there. And I'll get back to talk about that, because that's one of my very favorite subjects, and the judge has been involved in that too, probably more so than I think most things, but judge has offered great guidance where he feels we should be going. And
I think it's just as big a topic that has to be addressed as we have. So,
Because if
and
you're
I
going to put
appreciate
that anywhere near that corridor, you're going to have lots of people don't want to see a big tank on the side of Payne's Depot. So that'll be a big. That's where I was going with that question. If y'all knew where it was going yet, because I imagine that will be a big topic.
But here's the reality: the placement is just all dictated by the efficiency of the system and the needs of the system. I mean, yeah.
well, and you got to build it where you got a property owner that's willing to work with you.
You got to build it where you got property too.
I am no believer in condemnation, and I don't even want to go there. So, other questions on South Side Tank and Distribution System?
So give me the timeline. So where do you think? I mean, when are we going to be under construction? Is it?
I'm going to have to get back with you on that, because, and I'm promise I'm not being coy or anything.
I know you see.
Well,
I know the puzzle has to have other
but it all
pieces
depends
fall in
on
place.
that last piece.
Yeah.
And the hydraulic model as well. But that last piece, your future water sources.
Yeah.
This tank is going to probably be the point of delivery from where we source our water from, in addition to what we
I
treat.
got you. So the long-term water supply solution is going to dictate the construction and
It
where
is.
all that stuff goes.
And I don't know how long that
And
discussion is
that
going
could
to take.
be lengthy.
That could be a lengthy process.
I understand.
But I'll say, I mean, to me, I think it's a very simple answer.
Yeah.
I think it should take
Well,
one,
I do
maybe
too, but
two
that's
meetings.
not.
But
We're not there at that
right,
point.
we're
too.
not, and I can't. That's the part that I
understand.
can't predict.
The-
If we want to take that out of it, what I'll do is I will email you kind of a design and construction schedule,
Yeah.
so you'll know at least what, once we have a direction set on long-term water supply, you'll have a schedule, you'll know how many months of design, permitting, and construction.
Right.
That I can send you.
And I understand that, but the people, my constituents don't. They want to know about fire hydrants in Lancelot, and they want to know why in Sutton Place that the water pressure is not better, and that's what they're dealing with now. And so, as long as I can say, here's the plan.
Sure.
This is what we're looking at. That's the key.
And if you want to meet with, and talk about specific areas, we can do that, and we'll be able to do that with a lot better data with our hydraulic model to say, here's the problem. We've got a lot of, we chatted about it. There's a lot of places with when the fiscal court partnered with the utility, dating back a number of years before me, is to blanket the county with water lines for domestic service. Is you've had a lot of houses added, you've had a lot of structures added, and well, we're approaching the time that we got to start talking about adding to that infrastructure if we're going to continue to add customers in these remote areas. I mean, we've got some lines that are 4-inch in diameter, and we've added 20 houses to them over the years, and you're not going to
talk to Chase about, what would be a picture of where would be improvements, where could improvements be made that would impact the most people and most efficiently used dollars if that was something that we wanted to venture down to. And I think we have to look at it.
And we can do that. I think we're in a good position. So if we go to the next slide, we were talking about water in the south. Now let's talk about sewer to the north. And so we have our northern Scott County sanitary sewer improvements. And as I said, this is really just a discussion of funding. We currently serve customers between Georgetown and Sadieville in the Cincinnati Pike corridor. And this system, it is a very complex network of pump stations and force mains, and they all discharge to Plant 2 out by Toyota. And that system, we're exceeding that system capacity at multiple points at pump stations, and those force mains are now full. We've added enough customers, mainly at the residential subdivisions there, and there's plans to add more. Guess what? That infrastructure, the way it was originally sized, has been built out, and now we've got to start thinking about how we expand that infrastructure. We recognize that need in that corridor, but let me state very clearly that those improvements, they don't happen quickly, and they're going to require a lot of funding and a lot of planning. And so where do we stand today? Well, we know that Judge Covington, the fiscal court, you all worked with Congressman Barr to secure, it was just over $1.75 million in grant funding through the Community Projects Fund. That was last year. And that was for planning, and that was for some alternatives analysis, and that kind of sets us up. That's the first bit of work that needs to be done. So what we've done, we have a task order that's been executed with an engineer, and that's for $495,000. That's the first spend of that grant money that we will see in that scope of work. It includes alternatives analysis, it includes hydraulic modeling, surveying, environmental assessment, and geotech, and funding support services. So timetable, and here's where your head's going to spin, what I'm going to tell you about this, and I can't give you a timetable, and here's why. Community projects funding, that is administered by the US EPA. Some background there, we received a fund for Plant 1 through this source, Community Projects Fund through the EPA. We received a grant back in the spring of 2022. So we're 3 years later. I still am not eligible to draw on that funding. That is no lack of effort. We have monthly calls and virtual meetings with the EPA. We send emails constantly. I've heard Judge Covington say, you're working with the railroad, they do things on their own timetable. That's the same with this funding. So I've been working on trying to, this grant is secured through Congressman Barr, but working with the EPA, this is going on 3 years of me submitting forms, revising forms, me having meetings, sending emails, saying, where are we? I still am not eligible to draw on that money.
And that's on the other project.
That's on the first one.
But on this project,
we were
I've
awarded
sat in
this
on
last year.
On multiple calls with Chase and other staff with the federal government, and it's a very challenging situation, and we have to work through at their pace and what they ask for, and it seems like to me sometimes the goalposts and the priorities change.
They change and they move the goalposts. That's a good way to put it. And I mean, I'm not kidding you.
But
we'll
this-
submit something, then we'll go months submitting things. Then they'll go back and ask for that we submitted months ago, and we will just forward the email that we already sent with the date. I'm not kidding. That's what we're. Manage your expectations, because that's what we're dealing with.
But I wanted everybody to hear, and I was glad when you shared this, it was on the agenda, and that, people need to know we're working on it, but it's at a pace that we are, we can't control the pace, and it's important to us. But the rest of the piece of this is, until you have this work funded and then this work completed, then we can't. Then the next object is, the price tag for this improvement is going to be 25 to 30 million conservatively, and we'll have to go get that. We'll have to go compete for federal dollars and state dollars to help with this. So just the big picture of things, it's how do you eat an elephant? Well, we eat it one bite at a time.
We're ready to go. I've got an engineering task order. It's executed. I can't give them notice to proceed till I am able to draw on those funds.
Chase, on the wastewater treatment, I know we were talking this, it could be years before we get this sewer line to the north, but will there have to be an increase in capacity at the wastewater treatment facility across from Toyota? I know Toyota owns a percentage of that. It's over half. I can't remember, in the 60s maybe. I can't remember correctly. But are they going to have to now? Are you all going to have to now? I know you're getting ready. You're just getting ready to finish up. One, are you going to have to increase two?
We will at some point. I don't have a crystal
But
ball.
not
on
in
it.
the next. It's not in the next 5 years, or.
I could maybe see us start planning in the next 5 years.
Okay.
As you said, the capacity at Plant 2, it's divided by percentage, by gallons per day, between Toyota, Georgetown Municipal Customers, and Lanes Run Business Park. So there's three pieces of that pie, and Toyota's a partner with us and helps fund that plant. And with their expansion, our first question was, how much more capacity are you going to need? And they say, none. We're reducing capacity. So that's a development-driven issue. As we see development in that service area, that remaining capacity is going to be used. But I don't have a timetable for
Sure,
that.
I understand. But it's on your all's radar. You know,
Absolutely.
At some point, it's going to
We're already putting money away, socking money away
Yeah.
monthly. We put into a restricted fund that is for that project.
And the piggyback on that, the one I hear about Cardone, I know at one time I heard it was supposed to be open this month. Is that still the plan, or?
So we actually updated the board at our meeting earlier this week. March 31st is our beneficial usage milestone. That's when we put the new plant online and we start treating water there. Judy Construction has tried their best to meet that, and they were trying to do that in a manner that through this whole project, they've never claimed any of their contractually obligated weather days. They will have to ask us for weather days at this point.
So
And
probably in the
that's-
next couple of months, it should be open.
I don't know. That's an ongoing negotiation. All I can say is I'm not worried about that. We had 16 projects on the wait list. We feel like we're close enough that the board, at my recommendation, they approved the first 10 projects on that list in January. So I think that we will not have a list here very soon.
Yeah, and there won't, I guess the main thing is development's not going to be slowed because.
No.
'cause
If we have to extend the project, it's not.
Okay.
It will be extended in a manner that if you started a project today,
Yeah.
treatment plant's going to be done before that project's done.
Gotcha.
Our last thing, this is just short and sweet, just two projects kind of right downtown, our Farmers Market Pavilion and Hall of Justice. Just wanted to say that on Farmers Market, that water connection that was made, the account's established, ready to go there. And then on the Hall of Justice, We've been working with the prime contractor and their subcontractor that's doing the work for water and sewer connections. We've got our engineering staff out there, our inspection staff, trying to make sure that goes as smoothly as possible. And then even on some of the stormwater issues that have come up, we've been out there to try, and we will continue to try to help and be a partner with on the Hall of Justice project. So we want, at least from the parts that we can help on, we'll do our very best to continue to support and make sure that goes as smoothly as possible. And we're excited to see kind of how that corridor
We appreciate that very much,
develops,
and
so.
you all been, your staff and you have been very responsive, very helpful, and I appreciate that very much. I mean, the stormwater issues and the other issues, just all the sanitary, it takes a team to navigate it, and I appreciate what you all have done there,
So,
and will continue to do. So.
continue to do.
Yeah, Judge, the county has had a long history of partnering with GMWSS. We went and tried to get our own water supply with the reservoir. We've paid money for tanks, running water lines, sewer lines to Eder Lane. We partnered in that situation when they had problems. And I think what we probably need to sit down at some point is really kind of come up with where do we want to go with our partnership with GMWSS in terms of, are we going to look at upgrading lines in the county to now allow for more fire hydrants out in the county? Because I know that's not originally was sized for that. Where does the developers fall at in all this? If we're going to add all these houses, where's the developer's responsibility in upgrading the lines? And then, you know, obviously the big looming question is the long-term water supply, which I know you're working on that. But I think the court needs to know there's some money that we're going to be facing to have to expend at some point in the future.
I think everything you just said was spot on. And, you know, Chase has a consultant that is drafting and working with GMWSS to do an RFP, and that RFP will be, you know, approved and put out. And then once you get over that, you know, once you get that returned and they do their analysis and make the GMWSS, the board makes a decision, then I think all of those things then can be assessed. And I've talked at length with Chase about, you know, how do we prioritize, you know, if water lines need to be improved, how do we prioritize impacting the most people and using our money most wisely? And then you bring up a great point. You know, those that are developing areas, you know, what role do they have? And we'll lean heavily on GMWSS to help us on that. So,
a question along those lines, and it's the only one I really wanted to ask, was as far as residential housing, and we're talking about capacity, and something I get asked a lot, and I really don't know the answer to, existing approved lots in neighborhoods, if we have the capacity to build on those, and then like we're talking about in the future development, like how are we poised currently for just residential housing, not necessarily all the commercial stuff, and what does that look like over the next 4 or 5 years?
Well, I think, first of all, you've got to look at which plant service area a development would be in. And your first question, where we've seen that and worked with builders is remaining lots in Harbor Village, Mallard Point, those residential areas north of town where the development plan and the entire project was approved. Now we're experiencing some issues, and they're coming back and saying, well, these few lots that are kind of sprinkled throughout that were never built on, and a single home is not, we're not going to see that anywhere if that comes online. So we work with that builder or that homeowner, make sure that situation is not anything that's going to hold anybody up. And we have policies that help us deal with that we're say that somebody that's trying to do one home is not going to be held up by a 200 home development in line. That's not going to happen. That's not fair. So, you know, we've developed policies that help us with that situation. As far as residential development in the Plant 1 service area, I mean, I think it's going to be sometime this year with our plant, when that comes online, let's go. Let's build. Let's try to solve some of this home crisis or shortage. Plant 2 area, like I said, we've got remaining capacity, and we'll be poised to really know when we want to start planning for an expansion there. And I think that the expansion there, it's going to be a lot less significant than the expansion at Plant 1. So I think we're in good shape. We know where we've got problems. Sewers to the north, that's a big one. We know that there's some water infrastructure throughout the county where we've seen a lot of homes added that we've got to be planning, but I think we're in a position we can do that.
So the Plant 1, where specifically, like, would you see the growth maybe, is there somewhere on the bypass or?
What I think I can do is I can send you a service area map for Plant 1 and Plant 2.
That'd be good.
And that
Yeah,
way
that'd
you
be
can
helpful.
see it. And that was actually factored into the comp plan update. We shared those service area maps, and I think that's better than me try to explain it road by road. It's real easy when you look at the map.
Yeah, okay.
So I'll make a note
Thank
of that.
you. Anything else, Kelly?
No, well, I guess the next 5 years, I know we're talking about capacity and looking long-term, and I'm sure, and you're looking at that for sure.
Well, Plant 1, the upgrade, we're doubling our capacity. So right now we're right around 4 million gallons a day, and we're doubling. We're going to go to the design of the current plant will go to 4.5 million. Where the new plant will go to 9 million. So we're
It's a
ready.
substantial amount of
That's-
built-in capacity.
That's capacity for 20 plus years.
Well, that's great, because I feel like the demand for housing is there as soon as we're able to get it going.
I guess one of my questions has always been is so Plant 1 comes on, Plant 2 still got a little bit of capacity, and that would be your next target for either expansion. Does it make sense to have a plant in the Sadieville area and work backwards? I've always thought about that. Like, does it make, instead of bringing everything back here, does it make sense to have?
We could look at that. There was a plant there at one time.
Okay,
And
I didn't know that.
we turned that into a pump station and sent it back. That was at the request of Sadieville. We took that infrastructure over for really just because I think it was unaffordable for them with the customer base at the time to operate and own that plant. I can't answer that without some engineering study, but I can tell you that Kentucky Division of Water, their goal is to minimize plants
Gotcha.
and
So
not
they
permit
want you to
and
stay where
operate
you're at.
satellite plants. You've got to have somebody, you've got to have staffing, you've got to maintain a permit. I would think that building a plant in Sadieville would be a tough sell from a permitting and a regulatory standpoint.
Gotcha.
And Mile Point disposal you pump back to as well?
All the
And
way to
it's taken- it's
Sadieville is
taken
all
offline.
pumped to Plant 2.
Yeah.
I have just a question. I live in a house that my grandmother and grandfather built in 1960, and I had to do a picture to make sure that the line coming to my house was copper and not lead. So what did that, I assume that went all over.
Correct.
How did that, do y'all have the results from that? I was just wondering,
Yes,
is there a
we
lot of
do.
lead, no lead?
So what you're talking about is that's a federally mandated program through the EPA. That's the lead and copper rule revision, and part 2 is the lead and copper rule improvement. We've been working on that the last 2 years. We finished it this past October and submitted our what it is a inventory, and we had to, per federal mandate, go out and check every service line in our system. We don't own the service lines, but we had to check them. So we went and we have checked our entire system. We have no lead in our system. That's the key. That's the takeaway. We submitted that inventory, and we have a high level of confidence, and that was done through multiple methods. First of all is lead was, I guess, I don't know if the right term, it was outlawed as of 1989. You couldn't use that for water service lines anymore. That's not an approved building material. So the first thing we did was we did a record search. Anything that's built prior to 89, we could just say, after 89, we could say those are no lead because it wouldn't have been approved. So then everything else, we had to do a physical inspection, and that's a 2-point inspection. We had to do an inspection at on the customer side of the meter pit, and then we tried to get an inspection on internal plumbing of every home. Now, We got that, of our roughly 16,000 customers, we got that down to, I think it was less than 1,000, where we couldn't meet with a property owner and get inside their home to see get that second point of inspection. So what was approved by EPA and Division of Water was a statistical analysis where most utilities use the statistical approach for their entire survey, their entire inventory. We just used it for, I think it was just a few hundred. So based on how many unknowns did we have, they gave us a sample size. We did a random approach of houses within that sample size and did inspections on those, got that back, and we were able to certify. I was able to sign my name saying we don't have any lead on the customer side, nor on our side in our system. So,
Rob Jones.
Jay, with the little bit of growth we're seeing in stamping ground, are we good down there? Because I've had that question brought up.
I could use some more flow in stamping ground, so please,
Okay.
please encourage some single-family residential
Well, we
there.
try, but it's slow, but it's, we got 30 more houses coming this summer, so.
That plant, the plant in Plant 3, it's just a smaller satellite plant. It would benefit from some more flow. We'd have a healthier plant.
Water pressure, all that, all that's good.
You've
at
got
this
your
point.
tank right there, so.
Since you did that new line, it seems like it's improved a lot.
I haven't heard anything in that area since we put that line back in the way it was.
That completed a loop, that was one of the issues that I remember being conversation, that loop, how important it is. And it's good for stamping ground.
I haven't heard any issues on the water side there and on the sewer plant there for Plant 3. Yeah. If we could get a few more neighborhoods going there, send us some more flow.
I'll flush another time or two.
Oh, Lord. Hey,
Judge,
I appreciate your leadership. Is there anything else that?
I've just made a list of things I need to circle back on. I know we want to bring the long-term water supply discussion before you all, and we will do that. We want to look at kind of some isolated county water issues and prioritize those. I need to get you, as best I can, a schedule for Southside Tank and service area map.
Sounds great.
Did I miss anything else?
Appreciate your leadership, and I really do. And thanks for what you do, and thanks for this update.
Yep.
And
Let me know when you want me to be back.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
With that said, though, I will be bringing next Friday. I'm going to share via email. Jeff Lott from the Net Device Recovery Group sent a proposal to us to consider for additional participation in the Net Device program from the opioid settlement funds. I'll send that to you all to review, and then we can discuss how you all want to move forward there.
We have roughly, about 25 maybe, and we have 35 spots?
We approved 34 up front, and I think we were like 25, 26 had gone through, maybe even 28. It was 28. It was 28. And then just letting you know that I've been in touch very closely with HMB, JR and I have, and those two grants have been submitted for the bridge, the city-county bridge improvement program, and we'll keep you all in on that. The broadband project, been working very closely with them. Neil Lane, and I got an email today, Ryan, about Grayson. Evidently, the front of Grayson is connected, but the back of Grayson, they've ran into rock, and they're going to have to go some different route. So that they're working on it out here on Holton Way and Alton Court. They have replaced the required poles that they had over there that was on the opposite side of Lemons Mill, and now my understanding is KU is moving those lines, and then Spectrum will move in to activate that area pretty quickly. I need to reach back out to Derek Sublett with Norfolk Southern and ask about the two other permits in northern Scott County, but the big permit, the people are being activated there. There's over 400 houses, what I understood, that that got activation from that. And then there was one, Old Oxford.
I just sent you some good news on it.
And I saw that email. It was about ready for the Spectrum to do their.
Bluegrass has changed the falls out, so
That's good news. So it's just moving that along, and then we will entertain any other questions or comments from any court member, any new business that you all would like.
If the people on Grayson that keep contacting me, if they want to see if they have internet, because they're close to Ironworks in the back, like how, do they go to the website, or they call a number?
They can do the website, or they can call that number that I've shared.
Okay.
Do you have that number?
No, I'll get off of Facebook.
All right. And then anything else?
Well, today, ribbon cutting.
Oh, thank you for saying that. 1 o'clock, it's right there by the Ag Extension, hole number 1, I think. Is that right? Let me see. Drew sent me a text. He said Scott County Park. I messed up. It's over in Scott County Park, right by the pond. So 1 o'clock, anybody wants to come to that, a ribbon cutting? Yeah. So that's at 1, and out there at the pickleball court project, they drilled 2 holes on Monday.
Yes.
Didn't drill anything on Tuesday. Haven't seen them since.
Yeah, that's correct.
And I'll try to find out more information. And then JR, Tuesday, Sheriff Nettles, Tuesday we have our next update. Last Friday, Sheriff Nettles and JR and I met with the window fabricator and encouraged him. He promised that he'd have all his work done by the 14th. Is that right, Sheriff? Yes. We shall see. Maybe we can go out there this afternoon and see if we've had any progress. It's been a little bit.
Yeah, I sent a few new windows yesterday.
But on the EMS side, I mean, they're down to just a couple windows and a door. But I feel much more confident that first or second week of April, I think we'll be trying to move in there. And I'll give you all an update when I get information. And then down here at the Justice Center, you see them coming up out of the ground. But one of the major issues is still storm water from underneath Broadway there and how to handle it on site. And they're still looking at engineering and a cost estimate to deal with an issue there. Anything else from anyone in the audience? Any David?
Yeah, I was just going to say real quick, I don't know if you all have seen it. The 25th from 5 to 7 p.m. is pre-conference for KMCA, and then the conference is the 26th and 27th of March.
And that's located at?
Griffin Gate.
All right.
Already signed.
Is this one in the golf tournament?
Rob Jones.
Summer. If it's nice,
I wish I'd brought this up last week, but when Darren made his presentation,
5 to 7.
the number of prisoners we're sending out of county is starting to get larger, seems like.
It was like 32, is that?
Thought it was 36.
Maybe it was 36.
And if I did my math right, that's over $600,000 a year we're sending out of the county.
I can give you an exact number. I don't have that number right in front of me, but I'll tell you this: if you want to go bond $45 million and build a new jail, that payment's going to be. I will stick with the contract that we have, and then I continue when I'm working with Keiko. It's like it gets kicked down the road, and David's been in many of these conversations about the state helping build new jails.
Yeah, they don't want to help.
Counties, in my mind, a county government should not be 100% responsible for the incarceration of individuals that have violated state law.
Yeah, I agree.
And there was one bill this spring that was going to impact state dollars that came, but it died. It's dead.
No
not
increase
moving
on that number.
But along your lines, Rob, like I want to be a great steward of tax dollars, and I want to spend. Do we need to look at the contracts and look at, hey, is there any opportunity at other spots that we could get a better contract? I'm 1,000 times with you there.
Because it seemed like we didn't budget that much money for that.
I'll have to go look. Michelle's sitting right there shaking her head. But
230 or something like that.
That's what I was thinking
But
about.
the people that-
250 is what we budgeted.
And we need to revise that, but being able to estimate
How many we gonna have?
how many come and go is very difficult. Not, but do we need to look at, hey, are there other spots that would consider taking them and at a dollar figure that might be a little bit more reasonable? I think that's our job.
gotta do whatever
And
to save some
I
money.
appreciate you bringing it up.
Yeah.
I'll say too, talking about the state involvement is be careful what you ask for, because it doesn't mean it would be cheaper if the state took over. Because they're not just going to take over and not charge us.
No.
No, yeah.
But if they, if they offered us, okay, you make this X contribution on an annual basis and we're going to take it from there, I'd say, where do we sign? Of course, we'd have to look at that contribution, but it needs to be more of a partnership. And, for county governments to be 100% responsible for it, I just think but I think the biggest takeaway from you bringing this up is, do we need to look at, are there other opportunities at sites that we might get a $50 rate instead of 55?
Well, another question for sure. Like I seen where he posted on your monthly thing that you had 26 transfers of prisoners or something, and I thought the jailers were doing all that now. Is that?
Ward transfers.
Okay.
But Darren is doing,
Okay.
when Darren sends inmate transfers from facility to facility, the jail staff is doing that. And that was
totally different than. Okay.
yes. But Rob, I agree with you 100%. Like, do we always need to look at how do we, are we getting the best deal we can get? And then I agree with you 100%, and we'll do that. And then forecasting for next year's budget, we'll work on that as well. Anything else? If not, then we'll close this meeting out. Thank you all.
Jared.